Welcome back to the workshop. A little while ago I was tinkering with an IBM XT clone that I'd come across, and finished the video by saying that I'd try and get it booting off a floppy drive and so on. Well, very shortly after that the board stopped booting, and I haven't had a chance to look at it until now, but yeah, I think it's about time we worked out why it's not booting and fix it. So let's get into it. Okay, so I've done a bit of debugging on this already, but this is what I've found so far. I've got the oscilloscope probe here hooked up on the reset pin of the processor, and if I turn the machine on, right, and that's just triggered. But what we can see, like it's peaked at sort of about 1.76 volts, and the reset, if I go back to, and we have a look at, we've got a bit of noise just from the way the setup is here. Oops, wrong one. But yeah, we've just got noise. But importantly, the processor would be seeing that as a low. And the 8088, the reset is active high. A lot of processors are active low, so when reset goes low, they reset. The 8088 resets when it goes high. And what we saw from that when I turned it on was it never goes high. So if I disconnect the probe, we've got the capture going, the video capture going. Now if I just briefly touch the VCC pin of the processor, which is 5 volts, to the reset to simulate a reset happening, watch what happens. Do that and get like that, and it starts booting. Keyboard bad because I've got no keyboard, haven't plugged it in, but away it goes. So it would appear the reset circuit's not working. Now that's a trap, because ordinarily, sort of conventional wisdom says check the reset pin, check the clock, check everything else, and you check the reset pin here and the reset pin is low, which is the state it needs to be in for the processor to run. But the bit that I was missing initially was it never goes high in the first place. So the processor is never getting initialized. It's never getting that positive and then negative transition of reset to actually reset the CPU, and probably a lot of the other chips on the board as well. So we've got to do some digging and work out why the reset signal is not going high at power on. Now, I believe on the early IBM XT, the 8284 chip here, it controls the reset, and it still does on this board too, I believe. But on the original IBM XT, it took the power good signal from the power supply, feeds that in, gates it with some clock signals and other bits and pieces, and then outputs a reset signal. But I don't think that's how this one works. I'm going to do some probing around, but I suspect that this has got a separate little circuit, probably made up of these parts here, to trigger that transition rather than relying on the power good from the power supply. But yeah, I guess I'll have to do some poking around and work out what's going on. Okay, so I was having a poke around, and I've noticed this spot here, which is marked JP1. There's no jumper there, but it looks suspiciously like there's been some soldering done, and I don't remember taking that out. I mean, I remember replacing the capacitor that's just above it. But when I went back to the photos of the board from before I started working on it, guess what? There's a jumper goes there. So I have taken that jumper out at some point. And not only have I taken that jumper out for reasons I can't fathom, but right there appears to be a trace that's broken going to that jumper, and that forms part of the reset circuit. And what I'm wondering is whether that little break is stopping, that there's a capacitor in the reset circuit that has to charge up before the device comes out of reset, and I'm wondering if that break is causing that capacitor not to charge up and for things to go instantly high, and essentially there's no delay coming out of reset, so it just doesn't actually get a reset signal. So I've got to do a little bit of digging there. So I've put a little bodge wire on it, as you can see there under the microscope. Hopefully that will be enough to make it work again. So that bottom pin does also connect to the positive side of an electrolytic capacitor, the capacitor that's just off to the top of the screen. So I'm hopeful. So yeah, I'll put the video card back in the board and hook the power supply up and we'll see what we get. Okay, so we got it hooked up. Let's see what happens. Hit the power button. Well, now I've got a screen full of garbage, so it's an improvement, but not fixed. Let's just try that again. No, similar sort of garbage. So I'd say it's still not resetting properly. I wonder if there's another issue in that part of the board. You see it's counting a RAM test there, just on the left where the flashing cursor is. It's actually done a RAM test, so it is running. It's just the video memory's corrupt. Interesting. So if I do that again, oh, and now it's going to boot. So it's like that reset is coming just a fraction too early. I wonder if that's down to the characteristics of the capacitor I put in being different to the tantalum that was in there. So it seems to be fairly consistently good now, but I'm just not convinced after the first couple of dud starts. It could be that the capacitor's holding a little bit of a charge. I could get rid of that by doing the reset. So now it's got no charge. It should have no charge anyway. No, still boots up okay. Well, I might just leave it with the power supply unplugged and powered off for a little while and yeah, give it 10-15 minutes and see what happens. See if it boots up properly or whether it gives that screen corruption again. Okay, well it hasn't just been 15 minutes, it hasn't just been 15 hours, it's actually been near on a week I expect since I've had a chance to look at this. So I've got it plugged back in. Let's see what happens if I try and turn it on, see if it resets properly. And yeah, like I bought one. It'll complain here because it's got no hard drive or other storage. There's no floppy, no hard drive, no nothing. So it's not going to get past this point, but that's expected. So at this point, I might replace this video card with the card that actually came with the machine. Make sure that's working okay. And that's this lovely beast. So we'll put that in over here where it's away from the RAM, because the end of the card ends up sitting down in amongst the RAM. So we'll put it over this end. Oh, except now it doesn't like that slot either, because that IC there it conflicts with. So let's try this slot. This slot's a little better. Yeah, that'll be okay. See what happens this time. Well, that card seems to work. No guarantee the parallel port on it works, but certainly the video part of it does. And again, it won't get anywhere because there's no storage devices connected. And this is where it'll complain. If I leave it long enough, it'll complain about no boot disk. So now I will put this XT IDE card in, find a slot for that, and see if it'll boot off that. That CF card's got a pretty bare bones DOS installation on it, but it should be able to boot it with any luck. Yep, there's the XT IDE, there's the CF card. You can see the activity LED here. It's not doing anything at the moment, but it should start blinking in a minute. Yep. Forgot how slow XTs actually were. Yeah, there we go. Starting DOS. And there we have just a very messy root directory on the CF card. So far so good. So that's not exactly an extensive diagnostic, but yeah, so far so good. Well, that's probably about it for now. We've got the board working again. It was just a dodgy reset circuit, as it turns out. Probably the next thing to do is going to be to do some work on the case, because the case was a little bit worse for wear. It had a bit of rust in it, if I remember correctly. So we may have to clean that off and repaint it. I'll have to have a look at that, but I reckon that'll be the next video in this little series anyway. But yeah, until then, if you liked it, feel free to tap like, subscribe if that's your thing, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.